Let's talk about C strings. So in C++, there's two ways that strings are stored. First of all, there's the string object, which we've been using a lot, and the other way is C strings. C strings are basically just a sequence of characters, so a character array with a null character at the end. So for instance, let's say that we have an array with hello stored in it like this. If we just put a null character at the end, and this is a 0, so this is 0, not an O. If we just put a null character at the end, that makes this character array a C string. So all a C string is a character array with a null character at the end. And we've already been using character arrays a lot, so this shouldn't be anything really all that new. It's just new terminology and a new way to think about strings. And you'll notice that if you look at the ASCII character set, the null character, the decimal value for that is 0. The decimal value for the character 0 is 48. So don't get those confused. They're two different. They have two different ASCII codes. And what this null character does is it marks the end of a C string. So this way your program knows the length of your string because it basically goes through the array and looks for the null character, and once it finds the null character, it knows that it is at the end of your string. A few other things. First of all string literals in C++ are stored as C strings. So if we hard code something directly into the program, so like let's say we have this, that's going to be stored as a C string. Look at a couple things. So first, let's look at how we would actually declare a C string and what the difference between a C string is versus an array. Let's say that we have a character array, and I'm just going to call this 1. And let's say that this has 10 elements, and then we say that this is equal to C, U, P. So this is kind of what we've been used to seeing with arrays, and I don't know if I'm going to get the 10, but this is going to store CUP in the first 3 elements, and then the other elements are uninitialized at this point. Let's say that we have, so this is a character array, but let's say now we want a C string with cup stored in it, so we can do char and then array, and I'm going to say this is 10 again. And then if we just say this is equal to cup, what this is going to do is, let's draw this. This is going to store cup in the first 3 elements, and then it's going to put the null character at the end of cup. So really the difference between just a character array and a C string is that a C string has the null character at the end of whatever your string is. So in this case, it's cup. We have our null character here, so we're saying this is a C string. If we were to go back to this one and say, put a null character at the end, we can do that by just hard coding it in like that. That is going to put the null character here, and so then this is a C string. So you can create a C string by just putting a null character at the end of your array, or you can do it like this where you use the double quotes. So you have this is a string literal, and it's going to store that as a C string. You might be kind of wondering, like, well, why do we want to use C strings? It seems like strings are quite a bit easier than thinking about, because a string kind of handles all of the mechanics for us. We don't need to worry about how it's storing it in an array. It just seems a lot easier. So the reason why we want to know about C strings is if you're using legacy code, all strings used to be C strings. So if you're using legacy code, and by legacy code that could be older code, like, I don't know, maybe code from the 90s or possibly older, it's going to have C strings in it. And so you're going to have to use C strings. Even if you're not typing C strings, you're going to have to know how to read and edit code that might have C strings in it. Also, some C++ libraries require C strings. So there might be a library you want to use or some functions you want to use. It might require a C string rather than just a string object, and so you're going to have to send it a C string to use some libraries. And then you also might want to use a C library. So in C, so we're using C++, but in C, all strings are C strings. And some companies especially might have libraries that were written in C and they still use them. And so you're going to have to use C strings with those libraries rather than a string object. So those are the main reasons we want to learn how to use C strings and at least know what it is so you can recognize it if you see it. So we've seen that we can store a C string like this. What if we want to just get a C string from the user? We can declare our array. So let's say that we have constant int size, and I'm just going to say this is equal to 10, and then let's declare an array. Let's just say that this array is going to hold a name, so we need a character array, and I'm going to say it's size. And so let's say that we want to read in some data and store it to this array. Well, we could either do, we can use a cin, but like we could just do cin name, and then whatever the user enters will be stored in that array. But the problem with that is, what if they enter a space? Like we know that, like what if they enter like 2 names? So what if they put something like this? We know that the cin is only going to get Bob, and it's going to stop reading once it gets to the space. So what we can do is we can use the get line. So cin dot get line, and put in name, and then the size tells it how large the array is for those reading to. So one thing that you want to keep in mind is when you're, and why I wanted to show you this, if you're reading in, like let's say you ask the user for a name. So this name is the character array. The size is the length of the array. So knowing that we need to have a space at the end of our array for the null character, size minus 1. So in this case, that would be 9. Because if we have this character arrays, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is 10 elements. We know that we need the null character at the end. So we can't fit anything larger than 9 characters into this particular array. So if we ask the user for, say, their name or to enter some information, it's important to specify to the user how many characters they can enter. And when this reads in, so when you do the cin.getLine, this is going to read in whatever the user enters, store it to the array, and it's going to automatically put the null character at the end.